Hi, I'm Jim Brett, President and CEO of the New England Council. Thanks for tuning in to this month's episode of Inside the Corner Office, where we connect with the leaders of some of our region's most well-respected businesses and organizations to learn more about their career paths and about the institutions they lead. This month, I'm pleased to catch up with Dan Cence, the CEO, Managing Partner of Issues Management Group, a strategic communication and public affairs firm here in Boston. Dan is a veteran political and strategic communications strategist with more than 25 years of experience. He's worked in both the public and private sectors in communications, politics, and government affairs. I'm pleased he could join me today to talk about effective communications amid the rapidly changing world of traditional and social media, as well as his insights on the current political landscape as the midterm elections approach. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. You know, we're at a very unique time, both in terms of national politics, as well as the rapidly evolving communications and media landscape. So I think today's conversation is probably very, very particularly timely, to say the least. You've spent your entire career in government and in politics. What sparked your interest?
So I was kind of born into it, like a lot of us are, right? Yeah. And then tried to get out of it a few times. I was going to be a sports broadcaster and call NFL games and do the whole thing. But no, in all seriousness, my grandfather got us all into it. He was a construction guy, union guy, but a lot of candidates came around asking for some support and some help in Brighton back in those days. And he worked on John F. Kennedy's 1946 congressional campaign. I have a letter from him, nice letter from then, the congressman, young congressman, who would go on to become so many great things. As we know, my grandfather worked for him on multiple different campaigns, always in a volunteer capacity, which then I think sparked the interest of several of my uncles who were sons of his, one of whom you're pretty familiar with. Yeah. Bob Rufo was working for Dennis Kearney in the Suffolk Sheriff's Department. It was his first. He was his legal counsel first, and then deputy sheriff, first sheriff, and then became sheriff in 1986. Ran against Dapper O'Neill.
That's right.
And that was the first real campaign. That and a couple of state rep races that Bobby used to pull us into and say, "Hey, kid, hold a sign here." And me and my uncles would, we didn't know why we were in Brighton Center holding signs, dodging cars, and got a real taste of it. And in '86, I moved in with my grandparents for that whole summer to work on his sheriff's campaign. And my grandfather, he had a pickup truck with 3 on the column, and we put up 2,500 signs.
Wow.
Me, him, and Dan Sullivan, who's Paul Donovan's father. Yeah.
All units.
Yeah. All around the city, and we go to Mrs. McGillicuddy's house, and she'd say, "We want a little one here." My husband says, "Put it on the porch," and we put up 2 4x8s on the corner when he got home.
Wow.
But we put them all up, and I got to see the whole city and meet a lot of political folks, and really get into it, sit in the headquarters, and be the kid and just listening and the whole. And then he went on, as you very well know, and ran for mayor in 1993 unsuccessfully. But by then I was in college and studying this stuff and working. And a professor of mine was Toby Berkowitz in college, and at the time he was working on a couple presidential campaigns, and really that's where I got the hook on the professional side of it. Was working with him. Came out, did a couple of campaigns with him, and I was off to the races. I started out as a field kid, but I always had the comms background. And I would always migrate to as the press secretary, comms guy, and then comms consultant and other things. Wow. But that's kind of how I couldn't get out, right? I tried to get out, and they said you can't leave. So
rich history, though. Yeah, family being involved as early as '46.
Yeah.
Congressman John Kennedy.
Yes.
But you are a well-known communication expert, to say the least. But you're also a CEO who started and run several firms. So. What has been the biggest challenges running a firm, and also the flip side? What are the greatest benefits of running them?
Yeah. So you become really good at the work, right? Mm-hmm. And the work is one thing, and then people acknowledge you that you're proficient in a certain area. That doesn't train you to be the CEO and to run the place, right? So all of that I had to learn on my own. I think starting companies the hardest part for me was believing in yourself that you could do it, right? I'd work in a firm, or I'd work for an association or a group, and someone up there was the great guy behind the curtain that all things just kind of happened and work came in, and we did it, and we executed on it and did it. But when you're the CEO, you have to believe that not only can you do the work, which is easy and you're confident in that, but you can get it, right? And then you could run the business. You convince other people that, hey, we can do this, and it's my name on the door, or there's no backstop to it. So I think it's a lot of that is self-belief, and you know, understanding the marketplace and understanding that, hey, I got something to offer that someone might give me some money for it at some point in time. So I think that's really.
So that was the challenging part. What about the benefits? Sure,
and the benefit, and I hope this doesn't sound too cliche, but it's really watching young people learn and develop their careers and
so
go
you found that rewarding?
I really do.
Okay.
You know, the people part of it, and see, you know, people come and they, you know, they grow and they leave sometimes. Hey, we all did it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're sad to see them go, but then you're, in a way, you're happy. Hey, go do it now. Do it on your own, or go and take another challenge. So it's certainly that part of it.
So for those who are tuning in, may not be familiar with your firm, this is a softball question.
Sure.
Can you just share a little more about the services?
Yes, and I'll try and be brief and not do the whole 10-minute commercial, right? Yeah. We're really morphed into a strategic consulting company, Jim, that utilizes comms, that utilizes public affairs, lobbying, crisis comms as tactics to achieve the goals for our clients. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, I would imagine, later on, and how the changing landscape of this whole field has become. We work in highly regulated industries really only. So if government's intrinsic to your success, then we're someone you want to work with. So the verticals we work in are healthcare, real estate, nonprofit, higher ed, and then we do crisis really across all of those verticals, and agnostic really to any sort of business. We can help you with the crisis communication.
What about
part of
nonprofits?
So nonprofits, I mean, people don't realize how important government is to their funding, their 501c3s, so working with the Attorney General, have them not run afoul with where they're going there, and understanding of the complexities and balance of them raising money, but always the mission, right? And it feels good. We have different nonprofit rates, which are lower than our corporate rates. It's a little bit of your go straight to heaven points, right? To be able to help. But you can really see, and it's not us, it's the nonprofits that are making a difference in people's lives. So if you can play a small role, you know, and now I've been lucky enough by some of them to be asked to be on the boards of them and help them with it. And it really, it makes you feel good about doing some good for people in a small way.
You encourage your staff to be engaged in some charities?
We do. So if you're in senior leadership, you need to be on the board.
Okay.
And then at the VP level, we really try to push them out, encourage. We don't want to infringe on too many people's, a lot of young people's family times and different things like that, but I try to do it by example. I've been on the board of the Children's Advocacy Center in Suffolk County for my time in the DA's office there. For 20 years now. I've been on that board since right when Danny Conley came in, and he asked me to be on there, and I've stayed, and it's been one of the most rewarding parts of my career, honestly. And they need a lot of help. You know, and a lot of them, they know how to service their constituencies. They don't know how to ask a legislator for an appropriation, or they don't know how to, even when they get the money, when the contract comes in January, they're like, well, it was supposed to come in July. Why is it coming in January? What am I supposed to do? You know the whole story. So there's a lot of need there, and we fill that. And in higher ed, I mean, you'll notice all the verticals I just mentioned are all kind of under attack by the federal government right now. So we have plenty of work to do in the real estate, and there's no cranes in Boston right now, and trying to figure out how the best way around that. Healthcare.
Joe Moakley would often say that his favorite bird was the crane.
Yeah.
I'd love to see cranes all over the city. But you're right.
You know, I mean, and the trickle down effect of that. The union halls are 50% empty now, or unemployed, and you know, what does that mean? And where those guys spend their money, and they're not going to dinner as much anymore. I mean, it just
ripple effect.
It really is. So we're seeing that all over the place, and in higher ed, you know, it's a tricky situation right now. A lot of them closing.
Public and private.
We do. So we do a lot of crisis work with Tufts. We did a lot of work with Berkeley. We work with UMass as well, and the university presidents, Vinny Pedoni, former colleague of yours, a friend of yours. Do some work with them. He's great.
But your firm works with political clients
We do.
as well as industry. So
Yeah.
how would you take what you've learned from working in politics and
Yeah.
then apply it with
Yeah.
working with the business
Yeah,
clients?
and any of my staff that have been around me could probably answer this question pretty quickly because I have generally the same answer. Everything I ever needed to learn, I learned on a campaign.
Yeah.
You can't push the deadline to Q1. It's a firm and hard and fast deadline, so you learn to work back from your deadlines. Fundraising is whatever you can do to bring in. You're responsible for the money that you spend for the budget, so you work on tight budgets, and you have to be able to make them last and stretch all the way down and have it get there. Generally, it's a lot of volunteer labor, so you learn how to inspire people and get them to work for a cause that's maybe not their own cause at all points in time, or at least not their self-improvement. It's some other person's name on the sign. But we apply a lot of that to the corporate side of it because there are a lot more flexibilities in the corporate work that we do. You can push stuff to Q1, but if you treat it that way, of working on a campaign and working on tight deadlines, and then the final thing I'll say is I think all of my crisis chops came from working on campaigns. Because you wake up every morning and the person whose name's on the top of that sign could have had a bad night the night before, and they're grumpy at the press conference the next day, say something, and you got to spend the whole entire day undoing whatever might have just happened just to get back to where you were when you started the day. So you get used to being light on your feet pretty quickly in that space.
It's a very unique time, to say the least, to be in the public relation and strategic communication field. Given how rapidly people are now communicating, getting their news is changing. In particular, we've seen a decline in the traditional media outlets in recent years. How does that impact the way that you approach your work? Is the earned media still as valuable as it once was?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would argue it's even more so. There are fewer outlets, but people are still consuming news from all sorts of different places. And a news story lasts forever now. It's not just fish wrapper in 3 days. It's on the internet, it's Googleable, it's AI now can go back even further and find things. So our ability to get stories is a little bit more difficult, but they're far more impactful because there are fewer outlets where you can get them and get them through where people trust to that point. There are 40% fewer reporters in the marketplace since 2010, and there are 30% more communications professionals. And that should tell you something, that there's a lot more news out there, not the traditional sense, not the Herald Globe news desk, but people are acquiring information from disparate locations that we have to wrangle and figure out, right? And move our message. So I think being succinct in your message is far more important now, and really driving and understanding who your clients are and what their core principles are to get it across much quicker. They scroll through TikTok in 90 seconds. And if you ever made your point in the first 10, they're on to the next. So there's a little less attention span and some of that stuff, but I would think that it's been morphing that way for years. It's just really sped up in the last 10 years, for sure.
Yeah, no, you're right. We've just seen such staff cuts across the country in the newsroom, so it's a new day in how you try to figure out how do I get my client that coverage with so less people to deal with in the media.
Yeah, and I think that relationships matter even more now.
I agree.
Right? So if the pool's smaller,
it is.
You got to have relationships with those who are there that you're playing with, right? And there are fewer of them that are covering things, and fewer of them, and they have less time in the day to hear you, to hear pitches, to get there. So if you already have the relationship, we're in the relationship business. If you have it, you pick up the phone, they know what you're going to say is trustworthy, they know what you're going to say because you've done it 3, 4, 5, 10 times with them before, is going to get them a good story. They'll pay attention to you a lot quicker, and it makes it that much harder actually for younger people to break into the business. They have to. I preach relationships all day, every day, networking.
That's what we do. The New England Council, it's all about relationships.
100%.
It's not the Zooms, and it's not TikTok, and it's face-to-face meeting and being out there and developing relationships, because when you're out there and you're talking, you pick things up that you wouldn't ordinarily. If you were just doing a Zoom, they'd answer yes, no, and that would be it. But if you're out there listening to people, they tell you, so-and-so just took over the position over here at the hospital and he's doing government affairs. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, you ought to give him a call. Boom. But if you're not out there developing those
And I would say it gives us even more an unfair advantage now, those of us who have networks.
Right.
Because some other folks aren't putting the time in to get them. I have a lot of young people here, and I'm constantly preaching at them. And they're like, well, you know so-and-so and so-and-so. So I said, great. I met them in 1998 in Boston City Council, where our greatest decision of the day was what we're going to have for lunch.
Yeah.
Right? And now they're majority leader, and now they're chairman of this and that.
Right.
Because we met as kids, and we grew up as peers together through. Find those people. Find the next one.
I know that.
You know, who's your age or who understands what it's like. And then you'll grow together in the business. So,
You know, one of the things that we do at the New England Council is we have the Rising Stars. So you bring in together some of the young professionals who, in a matter of a couple of years, will be in key positions, and you say to yourself, boy, I remember just meeting him or her at a social function of the Rising Star. Look at her now. She's got the big job at Fidelity and Mass Mutual, partners. But it's getting people out to be able to feel comfortable meeting people and talking to them face to face.
Yeah, I still do it every day. I think the last email I sent before you walked in the office was a young person who was just graduating from college and said, hey, my dad knows you. Would you be willing to sit down?
Yeah, we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I say yes to everybody, and people are like, oh, you're so nice. No, I get just as much benefit of that as they do, because they're going to be somewhere. If they're not here, which could be great, but they're going to be somewhere at some point in time, and they're going to remember, hey, that guy took 5 minutes, took a lunch, took whatever to help me out, even if it's to two things I said or whatever.
Exactly.
And now I have that, hey, I remember you, I have that relationship.
You never know where people end up.
Correct.
So it's always nice to be nice.
Yeah, exactly. It costs nothing to be nice, right? Yeah.
So you've had a lot of experience working on campaigns, but not only that, you've had a lot of experience working on ballot initiatives.
Yeah.
So in what way are these two types different
Sure.
in how you approach the...
So the major difference, obviously, is that there's no candidate, right? Which has pluses and minuses to it. Obviously.
You worked on one ballot initiative, the nurses
I did.
ratio in the hospital.
Yep. I worked on a bunch. So we worked on that one. We're lucky enough to win that one with Stevie Walsh.
Right.
We worked on the right to repair one. We're on the losing side of that one, but we represent corporate interest on it that actually needed to go through that process. They knew it was going to be an uphill battle. We're right now working on the one opposing rent control here in Massachusetts, which it's in its early stages of it. Hasn't really been approved for the ballot yet. So we try to get one or two a session every 2 years for those that don't know when those come around, or constitutional ones every 4 years. You don't have a gregarious leader and a cult of personality of a candidate to latch on to, which has pluses and minuses. As I mentioned earlier, you can have some crisis situations with the individual, but it's a lot harder to get people to pay attention to a ballot question and get to the what's in it for me for them, right? A candidate it's a tangible person. What are their values? What do they look like? How do they talk? What's their educational background? Does it match with me? A nameless, faceless, vote no on for can be a lot more difficult to really resonate. Now, we have advantages in fundraising, because we can corporately fundraise for the ballot questions, and they have limits on the candidate side. So that kind of balances itself out, because you have to spend a lot of money in this marketplace.
How competitive is it when you have multi-ballot questions?
It's going to be really interesting to see this year, isn't it? With 12 or 11, I think, where we are. It's crazy. Turn it into California. And listen, I benefit from running these things. It's no way to run a Navy. Like we pay legislators to be legislators and to do a job.
Right.
And the threat that people hang over them with, hey, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to the ballot. Right? Yeah, that's not, I don't think that's what we want to become. Certainly not, California with 100 ballot. They had to appropriate more money the other day because the Red Book's going to be so big, which no one's going to read because it's going to be 80 pages long. So, it's going to be a strange time. And right back to your original point of not as many reporters covering things, and we're fighting out in the streets, and we're going to, we were in Chelsea this morning I think there was 25 people there, and we're going everywhere trying to get the word out, because it's so disparate in where people get their information from now. So it's, but it's still interesting, it's still fun, and but different, definitely different.
You've advised a number of Democratic congressional campaigns over the years. So, how are you feeling about the Democrats' chances this coming mid-election?
Well,
midterm election.
Yeah, if we had this interview 10 days ago, it might be a little bit
Yeah, I
different.
know, the Supreme Court.
Virginia,
Virginia
crazy, whatever, everything that happened last night.
Yeah.
I really don't even know how to read that yet.
Right, yeah.
I think I do. I think it's ultimately going to be good for Democrats if Donald Trump is successful ripping apart his own party. I'm pretty close with Whip Clark, so I've done a lot of work on her red to blue initiatives around the country, and they feel fairly confident. Obviously, if that happens, Representative Jeffries would become the speaker, and then our own Catherine Clark here in Massachusetts become the majority leader. So I think we have a lot of self-interest in ensuring that
Jim McGovern becomes chairman of the
Exactly.
Rules. Richard Neal becomes chairman of Ways and Means. Rosa DeLauro from New Haven becomes chair of Appropriations.
Even Laurie Trahan, I think, is in a leadership position now and will benefit from that too.
And then you get all the subcommittee chairs.
Sure. Sure. So we stand to benefit
But
quite a bit. We feel good.
Good.
We do.
Okay.
Never feel great, and I think the earth is still changing underneath their feet. That's another thing. Is this? I mean, talk about taking gerrymandering to another level. What they're doing with some of these districts. I don't know how that's going to play out, but I do. Listen, it's the first midterm of a new president, and that usually history has shown. It happened with Clinton. It happened with Obama. The House flips, but now the Senate's in play. What he did in Texas and other things. And if we could ever
That's what I was going to ask you. Are you looking at any particular races, whether the House or the Senate?
Sure. I think it'd be interesting to see if they come up with in the Senate side, which I don't know. I follow the House a bit closer than the Senate just because of my ties with Catherine. But it looks like they're really trying hard to find someone to take Josh Oshoff off in Georgia because he's just as his first re-elect, so potentially going there.
But he has $32 million.
He does. It does, so that's not so bad. But they spent $110 million in the Republican primary in Texas, so the numbers are just stacked.
$32 million in the 4th congressional district in Kentucky.
Yeah.
$34 million
in a primary.
A record.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
But are there other races here? Northeast or New England?
So there's I was at a wonderful event recently because I'm on the board of a C4 that tries to fund female candidates around the country. There's a woman in Pennsylvania who's and I'm blanking on her name. I met her the other day, but this great woman, veteran down in New Mexico. It's been a predominantly red. It's a border district that they think they can flip that one there too, and really just watching. I would have said that the Massey race, but that's already over now, and just the power of what Trump's doing in his primaries is really the meddling of a president in primaries is unprecedented. I don't know. I've ever seen it in my career. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's all going to be very, very interesting.
What about New Hampshire? Are you looking at
I'm not following it as closely. I'm Chris Pappas. I hear from constantly. And we're trying to do some fundraising up there for them and the governor's race. New Hampshire is us in Massachusetts. We feel like we're a little more static than what they do up there. And even if you lose, you come back in 2 years and you probably win and swap the seat a couple of times. But
the Democrats have been criticized for not having a message. It's more just anti-Trump. Or I'm not Trump. But there are people out there saying you better have a better message if you want to win. Whether it's 26 or 28. What are your thoughts on that criticism, and what do you think they should be doing?
I think the criticism is valid, and the results show itself. Just some of the polls and the popularity, or the being a lifelong Democrat. I have trouble saying exactly what are we focal pointing? What are we focusing on? What is our full message? I think it's three things. It's affordability, trust, and affordability. Right? It's got to be affordability, Jim. Right? We're back in '91 again. It's the economy, stupid. Right? And Clinton's focus on that. And I think that if we can coalesce to just not get distracted by all the noise on the sides. People are hurting. People can't afford things. Gas is where it is. Electricity is where it is. Groceries are where they are, and just reminding people who's in power while that's happening. And if you want it to change, that's what you have to change. And I think it's the economy, it's affordable, but really, really specifically, it's affordability.
Who would you say are some of the better messengers in the Democratic Party?
I think Minority Leader Jeffries is a very good leader, a very good speaker. He's measured, little contrast to Nancy Pelosi in styles, but I think that it suits him, and I think he shows a steady hand, right? And you trust him if you were in power. Going to talk about the whip, Catherine Clark. I think that especially for women candidates, and to appeal to women on child care, on female health, women's health care, on affordability issues across the country. She can speak to it. She's lived it. She really connects with people on that message. Gavin Newsom's very interesting. I think that he's struck a tone with some folks that you or I might not have advised him to do on social media and other things, but it's somehow resonating to people, and it's wild. You know, he's willing to say whatever he's thinking at the time, and he's also meeting some of the more outlandish right-wing comments, not letting them go unchallenged. So maybe that's why he's resonating, Gretchen Whitmer. But I think the best Democratic messenger is Donald Trump. And if he keeps alienating people, and he keeps reducing the size of the scope of the people that he's working for and speaking towards, then everyone else around has to understand, I may not agree with everything on the Democratic platform, but I don't agree with that. And we can't have J.D. Vance or Rubio or whatever the next Trumper is going to be there. And certainly it's going to hopefully help us in the midterms. And then who knows what next thing he's going to say or do. But I think just a step back, you know, when your opponent's on fire, don't give him a hug. Right? Let him do what he's going to do, and get out there and say the crazy things, and really, you know, do the unsettling things that he does.
What advice would you give a young person who says, you know, I'd love to go into politics?
Yeah.
What advice would you give him or her?
I tell him to run. Not for office. Yeah. Run.
Run away.
Run away.
Yeah.
Well, it's a tough business, Jim. It's not the same business I got into, or definitely that you got into, where it was. The level of vitriol that's out there, personal attacks. But I will say, in all honesty, right? If you
look at all the people that you've met over the years by being involved in the campaign, not so much being the candidate, but being involved, again, building your, we don't use the term anymore, Rolodex. The people you've met over the years by just saying, I was involved in that campaign. You know who I met, and now look at him or her.
Right. You work with 3 months with someone on a campaign every single day, you know them. And you become friends for life. And I have a lot of those. And those are great relationships to have. No, I would say to young people, and again, not to be too cliche, but get involved. Get away from the keyboard. Go to the campaign headquarters, right? Stuff some envelopes if they still do that. Whatever. Go out door knocking. Go out dropping. Do it. Do the mechanics of it. Meet people. Go around really smart people who are running for office, who are willing to put themselves out there. Listen to them. Learn. And it still takes, it's one of the only businesses really that hasn't changed all that much in terms of interaction. You've got to go out and meet people where they are to convince them or influence them to vote for whoever your candidate is, and get involved in it. Listen, you're going to have a lot of fun. We know that, right? Campaigning is fun. It is, and it's emotional, and you have highs and lows, and there's no better feeling than winning, and there's no worse feeling than losing. You know? But that's because you're emotional.
Like that?
I've lost plenty, my friend. Okay. I've actually lost more, right? And it wasn't my name, and you feel worse when someone entrusts you to do it. But no, it's been a blessing in my life. I wouldn't change a thing. Regret a little, wouldn't change a thing. I'll tell you that for sure. And it's got me. But I'm the luckiest person you know.
Isn't that nice? Nice to be able to say that. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join me today, but also sharing your insights. And
I appreciate
all I can say to you is you're going to get lots of phone calls between now and the midterm, and then probably even more between the next 2 years in the presidential, because you're somebody they want to talk to. I just want to thank all of you for tuning in. I hope you found the conversation as interesting as I did, to say the least. Be sure to tune in next month when our guest will be Nancy Lehman of AARP.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.